1. This happened way back in 2010, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in the army and stationed in North Carolina. I had recently gotten home from deployment to Afghanistan, and my ex-husband and I had bought a house in a really cute little neighborhood. It was positioned at the back of a cul-de-sac facing the main road that went through the neighborhood. Shortly after moving in, my ex received orders to deploy to Kuwait. When he left, so did my best friend's husband, so she moved in with me. That way we both wouldn't be alone. A few months after, I was sent to Florida to do some training on our unit's new equipment. That's when it all started. My friend called me one day and she was frantic. She said that she went to the back door to let our dogs out, and there was a man just standing in the back of the yard looking at her. They were both just frozen for a few seconds. She said he then turned and jumped over the little fence and ran off. She said he was wearing a big black hoodie, which struck me as super weird because it was in the middle of August. I tell her to call the police immediately and set the home security system to stay. That way, if any door is opened or the windows messed with, the alarm will go off. She does. Apparently, they can't help her because she's not the homeowner. The next day, she calls me again frantic. She said that the bird bath from the backyard is now in the front yard next to the driveway. That bird bath weighs at least 200 pounds. There's no way one person moved that. And also, when did they do this? My friend didn't work, and she was home all day. In Florida, my team and I go to a movie to relax from a week of being outside for 14 hours in the sun in the middle of the swamplands in Florida. After the movie, we go back to our hotel. I check my phone, that had been dead for like half a day, and I have 10 missed calls from my friend, and a missed call and a voicemail from my home security system. I call the number to my voicemail and listen to the woman on the message saying there's been a break-in at my house and that they've sent the police. Next, I hear the voicemail from my friend. She said the same thing, and that she was staying on base with her boyfriend and wasn't home. I literally cannot do a single thing because I'm in Florida, but I must have listened to those messages pretty shortly after this happened, because I called 911 and connected to the police department in my town in North Carolina, and the dispatcher said the police were at my house right now. I get the number for the guy in charge at my house, and he says they cannot go in until I get there. I explain the situation and give them permission to enter my home. They can't, he says, but they'll have dogs search the perimeter after they figure out if the robbers are still inside. Once they figure out there's no one still in my house, they have the dogs track a scent from my house to the empty house next to mine. The scent trail then goes down the street and then disappears. They say the robbers probably got into a vehicle and left. Thankfully, the robbers had way too much to carry. When my ex deployed, so did 2 of his friends that also lived with us. So the robbers had a stash of 4 TVs, 2 Xboxes, and a Wii, along with all the games. It was found in the empty house next to mine, so we got all the stuff back. When I got home from Florida, I called the police to come do a search of my house. The state of my house was heartbreaking. Everything was destroyed. There was dirt all through the carpet from their shoes. They had broken in through a back bedroom window, so it was smashed out. That's what tripped the alarm. I had glass break detectors. My bed, mattress, box spring, and blankets were thrown all over my room. The couches in the living room were ripped and flipped over. There were some broken dishes, and my kitchen looked like the kitchen in the movie Jumanji, when the monkeys were through with it. The police did the searching and dusted everywhere for fingerprints. When they left, I had this mess all over the house, and now the black dust from the fingerprinting all over my walls. There was also a single 9mm bullet left sitting on the counter. Even though I wasn't there when it happened, I was terrified. I felt so violated, and they were never caught. Although, a few months after the robbery, this little old lady that lived on the corner had come over to my house and told me and my friend that she saw the whole thing happen. It was the neighbors directly across from the cul-de-sac. Their house also separated from mine by the main street, faced directly towards mine. They were likely watching me and my friend every day and every night to get a sense of our habits. When I was gone in Florida, they took notice. When my friend would leave every night to stay with her boyfriend, they took notice. All these years later, if I leave my house with my kids and my husband and no one is home, I still get paranoid that someone has gotten into my house while I was gone. So I grab my own 9mm pistol and search all the closets and places someone could hide. I don't even live in North Carolina anymore. So to the psychos in the house across from mine, let's not meet. 2. I work at a church as an office admin. I'm not a member, or even a believer, but it's a good job. This often means that if the minister is out ministering, I am completely alone in a very large building. Usually I like being able to work with nobody bothering me, and I relish the days when nobody drops in or calls. It was one of those quiet days, and I needed to take a stack of materials into the chapel. We never have lights on unless we're using a space, and I usually don't bother turning them on for the chapel. There are stained glass windows, so there's enough light to see by, and it's pretty with just the window light coming in. The area where I'm dropping off some printed materials is up a few steps on the raised area where the choir and organ and pulpit are. Drop the stuff, turn around, and I'm just about to walk back when I notice something. Now, this is an old church with pretty massive wooden pews, so if you're walking straight down the aisle, you only see the backs of them sticking up. You don't really see the seats or the ground between the pews. But from up on the platform area, there's enough of an area that I can see a coat lying on the floor between 2 rows of pews. I'm not surprised. We have a lot of people forget stuff on Sundays. Someone once forgot their teeth. That was fun to look for. So I'm heading down the aisle, looking down each row of pews to find the one the jacket was laying under, when I realize it isn't a jacket, there's a man lying on the floor. Now it's important to note that there are 3 aisles in the church, the main center one and 2 side ones. I always use the side one closest to the office out of habit. It's dumb, but I just feel silly walking down the wide center aisle of a church. The aisles are carpeted, I wear black dressy sneakers to work, and tend to walk quietly. The man on the floor is facing the center aisle. I freeze and stare at him, expecting him to sit up and say something, but I realize he hasn't noticed me yet. He's kind of wiggling his feet. Not a lot, just kind of rocking his shoes on the floor. So I'm pretty sure he's awake, or at least alive. I have no idea what to do. I've got severe anxiety and CPTSD, and I've long known my fight or flight response is to freeze like a dumbass. I'm just staring at this guy on the floor, trying to think of something to say, still not sure what I should have said. "Hello, sir, wouldn't you rather have a seat?" or something. When the main doors to the church open, I'd completely forgotten that Paul, one of the members of the congregation, was coming in to do some painting work today. He spots me frozen in the chapel and comes in. He pokes his head in and hollers, "Hey, Neon Fuzzball, I'm going to start work out front, okay?" at me. As soon as Paul started talking, the guy on the floor started craning his head around to see what was going on, or to see who Paul was talking to. I'm assuming. But of course, this man has now spotted me, and my dumbass brain still has my jaw wired shut and my feet glued to the floor. The man on the floor starts screaming. I've honestly never heard a grown man full-out scream like that in real life. It didn't sound scared or angry to me. He wasn't trying to make words at all, it was just noise. He scrambles to his feet and starts running down the aisle to the door and slams into it. He charges right out of the building, right past Paul, who just kinda stands aside and watches the man run off. We just look at each other for a long minute before Paul comes over and asks me if I'm okay, and what that was all about. I have no idea. I look down and the man on the floor has left behind a backpack. Me and Paul lock the outside doors and take it to the office. I call the cops. They say they'll send someone to collect the bag and look around the neighborhood, but they don't sound really bothered. Paul decides to look in the backpack, and I try telling him not to, but I'm frankly curious as well. Inside the backpack is a Bible, several disposable plastic spoons covered in foil, an empty bag of hand sanitizer, a roll of plastic wrap, 1 sock, and a pack of crayons. The Bible? It's one of ours, and he's colored in it. Not like a child or how you'd think a crazy person would. It's not all scribbles all over, and he didn't draw pictures or write in it or circle things. He's literally colored the words. Like going along one sentence at a time, coloring words or parts of words different colors. It kind of looks like highlighting in different colors, but with crayons. And with the sections of different colors changing randomly. There's no black gaps, so all the pages he's gone through look like a series of rainbow stripes. It's really neatly done. He's gotten through the Old Testament up to the Book of Esther, which is about 1/3 of the way through the whole thing, which means he's been coloring for a long time. This is what concerns me. How long had he been in there to color that far? Or did he come in before and take a Bible with him and then come back? And of course, what was he doing lying on the floor, and why did he run out screaming? This happened months ago, and the good news is I haven't seen him since. But I am uncomfortably aware of how vulnerable I am at work. 3. This happened when my best friend Anna and I were 15. We're now in our mid-20s and can still recall this like it was yesterday. In our town, the local outdoor shopping center was the place all high schoolers hung out during the weekend. There was a movie theater, multiple restaurants, and outdoor seating. It was the perfect place to hang out when the weather was nice. We live in a relatively safe area, so our parents felt safe leaving us there for several hours without supervision. Every time I went to the movies with friends in high school, my dad asked me to bring him popcorn. He loved movie theater popcorn, but would only accept it if it was drenched in butter. AKA, the bag would be disgusting and greasy by the end of the night. So Anna and I, thinking we were geniuses, would hide my dad's popcorn in a secluded place on the bottom level of the parking garage, where we never saw cars or people. This way we wouldn't have to carry the greasy bag around all night. If you couldn't tell already, this plays a very important part in the story. So this particular night, Anna and I had seen a movie, successfully hid the popcorn in our usual spot, and gone to get a late dinner. It was 10 p.m. at this point, and Anna's dad said he'd pick us up in front of the movie theater at 10:30. So we started our trek back to the popcorn so we'd meet her dad on time. This parking garage was built on a slope, so half of the bottom level was underground, the other half was above ground, but at the very bottom of the slope. This being said, you could see people walking on the sidewalk and vice versa, but only from a certain point. Anna and I were a few yards into the parking garage, minding our business, when I noticed 3 older guys, they were probably about 18, maybe a little younger or older, walking down the sidewalk outside the garage. These guys hadn't noticed us, and Anna hadn't noticed them. I didn't want to alarm her, so I casually told her to keep her voice down without giving her a reason. Not giving her a reason was a mistake on my part. You know how parking garages create an insane echo when you make a loud noise? Yeah, so Anna thought I didn't want to hear the echoes of her voice. She still didn't know about the guys on the sidewalk, so she proceeds to make the loudest attention-grabbing noise she could think of, and it reverberates through the empty garage. Now, the guys have definitely noticed us and start yelling at us. It started off with the traditional, "Oh, hey, baby, how y'all doing tonight?" and got more aggressive in seemingly seconds. It changed to things like, "Come with us," and "We'll show you a good time." Anna and I are kind of frozen, her staring at me, looking very apologetic, and me trying to think of the best way to avoid confrontation. I tell her, let's keep walking, there's a staircase on the complete opposite side of the garage we can go up, and come up the other side of the shopping center. We start walking at a normal pace, until we hear the guys' voices have gotten closer, and exceptionally more echoey. We turn around and see they had followed us into the garage. There were no other people, no cars, just us and them. Anna and I look at each other and start speed-walking, hoping to put some distance between us and the guys. That's when we hear them stop yelling at and for us and start running. Both Anna and I said run at the same time, and that was that. It felt like we were running for our lives. The garage was quite large, and to get to the top floor where we'd be outside with other people and cops that always sit in front of the theater, we had to go up 3 flights of stairs. Neither Anna nor I were very athletic, so we knew we couldn't keep this sprinting thing up for long. To make matters worse, there were 2 staircase entrances next to each other. One led to the stairs we were trying to reach, the other led to a service entrance that can only be opened from the inside. So it was a dead end. We hardly ever used the stairs, so I was praying we'd choose the right one, because if not, we were fucked. Anna and I made it to the staircase entrance and threw open the door with the guys not far behind. We had just made it to the second flight of stairs when we heard the guys yelling for us to come back down. That they'd find us anyways, along with stomping up the stairs not far below us. On the third flight, we ran past a couple who were probably in their 20s. They looked at us, wholeheartedly confused, because obviously they had heard the yelling, and we probably looked absolutely nuts. When we made it to the top floor, we collapsed on the floor, panting and sweating. The couple was rounding the second half of the third flight, looking back and forth between us and looking below them. At this point, the guys weren't yelling anymore, but we could still hear them, as their talking carried through the stairwell. They were asking one another where they think we went, if they should continue looking, etc. Even though the couple didn't ask if we needed help or if we were okay, and moved along without a second glance, it was still comforting knowing we weren't alone anymore. After 5 minutes of quietly sitting at the top of the stairs, trying to calm down and catch our breath, we couldn't hear the guys' voices, so we determined that we had safely made it. This whole ordeal transpired in no more than 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes felt like they were moving in slow-mo, no matter how short. This was the most terrifying situation Anna or myself have been in. That night, we don't know what their intentions were, if they were just trying to scare us or they had more sinister ideas. Either way, both of us agree it felt like we ran for our lives that night. If you're curious, we didn't go back for the popcorn, and I stopped hiding the bag. I sucked it up and carried around the grease-ridden popcorn bags for the next few years. It's been 10 years since that night, and I still haven't been back to the bottom level of that garage. Some say that bag of popcorn has developed a rudimentary intelligence, and is in fact running its own cinema chain now. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 446. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. My brain always goes blank at the part of which I have to remember which video I'm making. I've just made it. I have to then talk about it, and I forget. I'm a professional. Right. Well, you guys will get this on Monday, so there's no point talking about the weekend. I'll save that for... always record these videos in reverse, so I'll save discussion of the weekend for a video that goes out on the weekend. What date will this be? Anyway, let's see... This goes up on the 11th. Right, I've got a thing to do, but I should have had it actually done already, that's okay. Then we get to work on Glitch Monthly number 5. And we get that done. Well, we won't get it done, but we'll get it started, just to ensure there's no rushing about this time. I think we'll be alright. You know, usually as I edit, I like to have something on in the background, be it a podcast, or lately it's been quiz shows, whatever I can find, whatever's on Netflix and the like. And I've been watching Mock the Week, which wasn't bad. And I finally cracked, after a few years, 3 years at this point I think it was, and I decided to watch the new version of QI. And I loved that show, or rather specifically, I loved Stephen Fry on that show. And when I heard Stephen was leaving, I thought, well, I'm probably not going to watch it again. Doesn't matter who they replace him with. And then I heard they were replacing him with Sandy Tonsvig, and I thought, well, she's actually a pretty solid choice to replace him with. They've both got that kind of school head vibe about them. In a different way, but it works. But even then, I still didn't really care too much because, well, Stephen Fry was the show to me. I figured I'd probably watch the new version at some point, but I was expecting it to be years down the line. So rather annoyingly, I decided to finally watch it while I was working away in the background, and I rather enjoyed it. It actually holds up quite well, I must say. It's definitely got a different vibe to it. It's not quite the same, but still enjoyable and worth the time. Unfortunately, Netflix isn't up to date with it, so I'm going to have to wait till they add the most recent season. Or, no, not the most recent, it's currently airing, and BBC doesn't really seem to archive more than a couple of episodes, annoyingly. I mean, I pay my license fee, the least, you know, they should start putting up more box sets of these quiz shows and the like, but Okay, we mustn't become Grumble Freezer. Calm down, John. You can't become Grumble Freezer. But seriously though, what they charge for the license, they could definitely make those things available. There isn't a lot the BBC makes that I do watch. And today I've been watching Would I Lie to You, because I really like David Mitchell. In fact, he had a book that came out last week, and I went through it, and I think we threw it in about a day. It was only about 8 or so hours long. Ah, well. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.